Hello and welcome again to another segment of the Southern Utah Piano Pedagogy Conference video series, Conversations with a Teacher. We're here with Brandon Lee, who's a very accomplished pianist and teacher. He's been teaching at Tuacan High School for the Arts, at Dixie State University, and he has his own family business, Lee Family Music. Conveniently, the website is leefamilymusic.com. I hope I got that correct.
That's right.
And his wife, who's an artist and a singer, is part of that too. So thanks so much, Brandon, for being with us tonight.
Hey, thank you very much. It's my pleasure. This has been very fun.
The topic for today is teenage students at the beginning level.
I think one of the challenges for me is is that they feel like they want to skip things. They want to move past, oh, I don't need to learn, this chord, or I don't need to know what that's called, or how to execute this figure. It's hard. Their ego gets in the way sometimes, and that's not all of them. I'd say the majority are not like that, but the ones who are, it's really hard to get through if they feel like they're at a certain level, right? They're at a certain age where they don't see the value in spending time learning each note, learning scales, learning arpeggios, learning how to read, how to sight read even. Just show me how to do it. I can play it. So that's tricky. Another thing that's tricky is the this is like the bane of me right now is the Synthesia. I think it's called Synthesia. It's on the YouTube videos that students will play. I'll give you an example here. I'm going to share this real quick on the screen. This thing. Yeah. they drop, they fall, and students can play quite difficult pieces that they've learned. I mean, it's taken them like hundreds of hours to learn it, one 3-minute piece, but boy, did they play it well. And it's so weird. It's like another language to me. I can't for the life of me do it. It's against my grain. So but that's a tricky thing. Having students who can play they can play through, at least they learned it by Synthesia, or they had the tutorial on YouTube. Somebody showed them how to play the right hand, left hand at the same time, and they've learned essentially by monkey see, monkey do by rote. And so then they're coming to lessons now, and there's they want to get better, but they don't want to learn to sight read. I have to convince them is why they need to learn how to sight read and what the power of it is, what place it has, what the value of it is. And another thing, if you're trying to accompany somebody that you want to play for a friend of yours who's singing a musical theater piece, or you're playing something, a lot of people play something, you're playing something in church, and you wanted to play a musical number. The music's right there. If you can sight read, it's easy. You can just sit down and do it in a few minutes. So most of the time they'll get that, and they'll say, okay, I understand, it's important. And so, but just convincing them of the value of sight reading. I guess choosing materials, that's another thing that it's tricky, because I wouldn't start like a 13-year-old in the Faber primer level. The books that are sideways, because it's kind of they're meant for little kids, and the pictures are really really cute, and the explanations and everything is step by step. But some 13 to 14-year-old boys, they don't take kindly to starting in that book. And so I like to use there's some accelerated beginner books that are for teenagers, or that Faber has, Alfred has some. I know I like the Faber and the Alfred series, the accelerated piano. I'll also use the adult piano for beginners, or the adult piano series. And Faber has a great one. It's a two book series, and it starts, and it's pretty much like the Faber 1A 2A beginner books, but without all the cute pictures. It's just it's very clear, but it goes quick, so they're not inundated with 10 pages on a similar topic, and that can get boring for a 13-year-old.
Do you also use like outside materials, like sheet music that they bring in, or do you have any other materials?
Oh, sure, yeah. And there's quite a few. Amazon's been great, not only because of everybody being in quarantine last year, but it's just the selection. You can find so many different books. I've ordered a lot of books there's a lot of cool, and a lot of the students are interested in pop music, and the top 20 chart hits, and there's different. They'll have like I know what's that? Hal Leonard's put out quite a few series of pop hits for the teenager, or classics for teens, and it's they're not dumbed down too much, but enough to where they can feel like they're progressing fast and successful quick, and at that stage of the game, that's important because we are dealing with whether they're in sports or dance or other things, extracurricular things other than music, and we're competing as piano teachers, musicians, with that. So if they're excelling at baseball or soccer, or football, but piano, they're struggling with trying to learn, if you release the original version, then I think at least for me, I'm not a purist. I think it's okay if we step back and they can kind of play it because that's what they really want to play, but it's maybe just a little more simplified. Take out some of the hand crosses, the arpeggios, maybe some of the chords, and make the melody more simple. And usually, most of the time, 9 times out of 10, they're happy, and they're happy learning it, which makes me happy because they're happy, and it's just a great experience all around. And so there are books out there. There's books like that. MuseScore, I know if you can log in and set up a free account, and you can also pay for the pro account, but and it's a great way of just finding all sorts of music that people have arranged. You pay for the pro subscription, but even the free account you create, a lot of times you can download those for this public domain for free. So that's a very useful resource for me is MuseScore, musescore.com.
That's great. You mentioned, the baseball and all of those activities, and I think that's what a lot of us are facing, not just with beginning teenage students, but I think with teenage students in general. How can we keep them in lessons? How can we keep them interested? How can we keep them engaged? Have you found the secret?
I wish I could say yes. Fortunately, as many students as I've kept through to college, I've probably had just as many decide that it's not for them, or they need to go a different direction. But I think it's usually after they've tried so hard to stay in it, stay in the game, but it just doesn't work with time. They just not able to keep their time. So I told them when I first take a student on who's in those teenage years, or they're entering the teenage years, maybe I've started with them since they were 7, but now they're turning 13, 14, 15, and they're starting to decide what they're interested in. So I just try to explain to them all the different paths they can use, learning the piano, and why it would be important and beneficial for them to continue with that. In our area, they'll play in church, or they'll play, like I said, you can get good enough to where you can support yourself in college. Even in high school, I have a lot of students who are in high school. They teach. And so I'd say, if you want to do that route, or in high school they accompany their school choir, or they, get into college and they accompany instrumentalists to make money, to make a living while they're in college. I think just getting them to buy into it. But I like to incorporate the parent too, and so they can help the student realize, you're going to use this later on. It's important for you to stick with it right now.
Yeah, but I think there's some good points, and I think that's sometimes the challenge in the teenage age group. Where do they start transitioning from being a kid to really a teenager, or in their minds an adult? And in a lot of time, that change happens like in a couple of months. They suddenly show up and suddenly have a beard and,
Yes.
maybe not quite that much, but that's definitely different with a teenage student, that you can explain things differently and you can reason much more.
Yes, absolutely.
Now, one of the challenges that I can see is we like to have our students in, for example, programs like AIM or the Federation in festivals, those sorts of things. And it may be a little bit odd for a teenage student to participate in those, because as a beginner, they may be paired with, beginning children.
Yes.
Or if they are paired with the same age group, they are just behind in terms of the skill level. Do you have any experiences along those lines, and how do you usually handle that situation?
Yeah, no, absolutely. That's a really good topic, good question. It's just really tough. It's more even more transparent in the studio recital. So if you have the students come in and they're going to play a piece from Faber Book One, and they're 16-year-old, and then you have a little kid who's probably like 8 or 9 playing a Mozart sonata or movement, or
Yeah.
John Schmidt's Waterfall, then yeah, that gets a little not degrading, but it just makes them definitely think, oh man, I'm behind. But I think it's important as a teacher to, at the very beginning, let them know that this is your starting point, and I'm not comparing you. I think it's important. Just like with in life, children are always trying to please their parents. They want to make their parents happy. They want to make them proud, even if they may not say that, but that's what internally that's what's going on. And so that relationship with the teacher, as long as let them know. I am proud of you. I'm impressed with what you've done, where you're at, and this is where you're at right now versus where you were when you started. That's all I care about in this, and you're making progress, and just to keep reminding them of that. Sometimes we forget, we just teach, and I have 31 students. So next student, and take a step back sometimes to, tell them like, no, you're doing very good. You started a year ago and you've progressed, and now you're playing both hands together, and look how fast you're learning this and that. I think, for them, as long as they know that their piano parent, is proud of their progress and that they're doing okay, that's enough to get them through, and they feel like, yeah, I am playing really well. I may not be playing, as well as that 7-year-old or 8-year-old, but then they've started when they were 4, or so that's a key that I found. But yeah, as far as like the adjudications and like UMTA or SUPAF, I think it's good that they're closed. Usually they're just the one student going in and going out, so there's not a lot of you don't sit there and listen to everybody. You're not going to hear all the different performers.
But I think you bring up a great point with the piano parent, because at that kind of point, they are starting to lean more toward outside people and kind of shift from the parents. And oftentimes they actually confide more in us as piano teachers than in their own parents.
Oh, absolutely.
And I think we have a huge influence with particularly that age group. And sometimes maybe we don't realize that we are really maybe not even just the piano parent, but kind of the cool parent that you can trust in, that sort of thing. And then I think it really becomes important what we tell teenage students about what they are doing, and, the context we put it in. And so I think that's, I like the piano parent.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I honestly, working at the high school for the last 5 years, I've been able to see that on a more day-to-day basis, working with 9th to 12th graders every day. So yeah, that's very it's a very we may not want to take it all on, but sometimes we don't have any choice. You're kind of put in that position where
and sometimes it's, I think, also rewarding to suddenly to be important in a young adult's life and to be able to guide them.
Yeah.
And I think
there's
a lot of joy that comes with that responsibility too. Well, Brandon, thank you so much for all your expertise on this topic and the previous topics too of the other videos.
My pleasure. Thank you.
Again, the website leefamilymusic.com. Make sure to check them out, and you can probably feel free to reach out to Brandon personally too if you have any questions about any of those videos. So thank you so much for your time.
Yes, my pleasure. Thank you, Christian. It's been so fun.